Okay, wow. Thanks for coming for this interesting topic. Well, I think it's very interesting. And if people who know me understand that work-life balance is a topic that doesn't come easy for me because I don't really quite have the balance. When I did the research, I found some very interesting things, and it seems like a lot of people don't have the balance. It was actually Dave who thought that today's topic might be good for people in business, because generally people in business don't quite have that balance, especially entrepreneurs, going in the right direction. And I thought it'd be interesting to have a robust conversation about how you could work through this idea of work-life balance, and does it really exist? So on my journey in preparing today's presentation, I discovered that it is a very big topic. It's important to a lot of people. What we're going to do in our overview is going to look at the importance, why it's so important, what people define it to be. We're going to look at an interesting concept that I've discovered, and we're going to look at some tips and have a conversation about what you're doing in terms of work-life balance, and then look at how we can get in touch to continue the conversation. So, when I did a Google search for does work-life balance really exist, about 1.6 million or trillion, is that trillion? Results came up in 30 seconds. There are heaps and heaps and heaps of articles on this topic. It is a topic that a lot of people Google and a lot of people want to know. Funnily enough, it's something that I've spent a bit of time in the last 6 months researching myself, in reading books about how to actually get this. I'm a mum. As you know, I'm an accountant. I work in a business in a leadership position, and I used to run my own business. I am a wife. I am a daughter. I am a sister. I teach Sunday school, and there's a lot going on in my life. How do I get the work and my life in balance and in check? That is something that I've actually been spending some time reading in a few books that I'm going to share a little bit later, and trying to learn how I can best balance my life. So in my research, it actually talks about the fact that it doesn't actually really exist, and people have questioned it. Does it really exist? The books, as I mentioned before, that I have been reading is one that's called 168 Hours by Laura Vanderkam. She's also a mother, entrepreneur, author, podcaster, wife, and actually has a few hobbies on the side. She talks about how she's been able to spend time in her life creating time in doing these hobbies. So a lot of people go, well, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that. She says you've got 168 hours, we all do. How do you make the most of that 168 hours? 168 hours being 160 hours in a week. And how do you make the most of it? It's very interesting, the book, about how she talks about actually doing a time audit of the things that you do and working out what you're actually doing the time. And it turns out that a lot of people actually spend a lot of time wasting time doing things that don't actually add any value, which is why they don't have time. So that's one book. The other book that I've also been reading is this one by Cyril Popian. He's a local Australian, and it's called Work Smarter, Live Better. It's also about honing in your time management skills, as well as your work skills to actually be effective at work. So I think in our day, it is really quite difficult to not feel the stress of what you need to get done in a day. Certainly that's how I feel. I'm not sure about the others. How else has everyone felt about their life and their balance in terms of whether they can actually get things done? I know we've got different people around the room, different stages of their life, but certainly as an entrepreneur, I've felt at times that I have not been able to get things done on time and in an effective manner. What do you think? Dale?
Work-life balance. To me, it balances perfectly well because I don't do work during my spare time. I don't do. I define it very clear. So when it's office hour, I go to work. If it's when I off work, I try to be clear. So usually when client call me during the after hour, it's, usually a message says I'll call you back.
So you don't take calls after hours?
Not usually, unless it's really some deadline driven.
Wow. Did you start off that way from the very beginning, or have you developed that?
I think I developed that, but to be honest, for our type of work, I'm not surgeon, so it's almost nothing is that urgent that I have to answer at night.
Yeah.
If I'm on holiday, I will have a team member to look after things.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll make sure. Really, there's nothing need to be urgently fixed that night. Even your emails now.
So you put some things in place to allow for that balance in your...
Yes, in a way, yes.
So it is important to you?
It is important to me, of course.
Yep.
But I just sort of, because I'm lazy. I guess.
Okay. There's a lot of definitions of what work-life balance is. So it's defined differently by different people, and I've come up with sort of a few that I've, in my research, I think defines work-life balance. So here are a few definitions. It's Becky Wright, who's a life coach, says it's not about living life according to a schedule. Balance is about sticking to a timetable. It's about being happy and fulfilled. So it's not about sticking to a timetable, it's about being happy and fulfilled. Interesting. Another life coach, Jo Lee, she says, when people ask me how I define what work-life balance is, I always say that I think it's not so much about how we spend our time, it's actually about how we feel about how we spend our time. So what that's saying to me is that you could do 60 hours a week. If you feel that that's comfortable to you, 60 hours is okay. Interesting as well. Zig Ziglar, one of my favourite sales trainer, podcaster of all time, he says that I believe that being successful means having a balance of success stories across many areas of your life. You can't truly be considered successful in your business life if your home life is in shambles. That resonates to me as well, because you could be earning lots of money, you could be doing a lot in your work and achieving a lot, but if you're leaving your family behind, or you have a life, a shambles sort of, as he says, if you have your home life and your kids are not doing well, then I don't think that reflects well on who you are. And then this other person from Williams Realty International business, work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will bounce back. The other four balls, family, health, friends, and integrity, are made of glass. If you drop one of these, it will irrevocably be cuffed, nicked, perhaps even shattered. Interesting? So all different points of view. And there are a heap more, but in the interest of time, might not read through. But there are heaps of people that have said there's even something that Steve Jobs, everyone knows who Steve Jobs is. He's actually defined it in a different way. Who's the Virgin Galactic guy? What's his name? Richard Branson, the tip of my tongue. He's defined it very differently as well. So, everyone defines this very differently, but I will let you go do your research. I won't read to you. So some tips. I have come up with some tips that I found based on this, what do you call these? Pictograms? Pictographics, is that what they're called? Or infographics? Infographic. So these are something that's been put together. It's quite interesting of what tips that you can, obviously, I'm in my 40s. I know that from 35 or when I've had my second child, exercise sort of just went out the window. It sort of just was the one thing I just couldn't work out how to balance myself to actually create that. And I guess getting to know Dave, he's created a way for me to be able to exercise without it being too difficult in a short period of time to get results. So there are ways. And I guess it's about working out the how and what you don't know by talking to different people or by learning some tips. So this is one by this group called Equal Approach, and they've got 18 take-home tips, which are quite interesting. And you know, I just thought it was nice to have some tips from someone that's, I guess that I think they're life coaches. Other tips that I've come across in doing this research is one, with your family, create a shared calendar that you, your spouse, and your kids can access via smartphone, tablet, so everyone can see who needs and what wants to be in where and when. That's one thing that I find really difficult when you've got 2 kids and you work, and a husband is working out and not forgetting events and where people need to be and not being last minute. So then you reduce the stress. So I think sometimes about having balance is also not having the stress. And the second point is ensure you have open time throughout the day to focus on unexpected events. Having back-to-back meetings only leads to stress and frustration. Number 3 is block out time for exercise, meditation, or to read a book. So that's committing to a time in the calendar. That's me time.
Watching TV?
That's me time. Could be for yourself. Blocking out some time for yourself.
Golf?
Could be golf.
No, it's
You
not.
know,
It's
for me,
gamble.
for me now, and getting to know Dave, is 9:30 Saturday is my exercise time. That's the time that I've, you know, set aside for it, and it's, you know, very rarely that we don't have it happen. So at least I'm exercising once a week, as opposed to nothing, you know. Number 4, focus on quality time, not quantity. So again, a lot of what I'm reading is about being efficient with your time, being efficient with how you do things, as opposed to spending a lot of time. And I've done the audit somewhat. I probably need to spend a bit more time and do another week, but you know, I find that there is a lot of time wasting. So there probably would be more time for myself to get things done if I didn't spend that time wasting. Create clear boundaries between work and home. So I think that's what you're saying, Dale, that you actually go, well, not past this time, I will not take up any calls. Number 6, prioritize exactly what you need to prioritize at any given time across your work and home life. So having that priority list. Number 7, again, it's about priority, being really clear on what is most important to you, given your personal values. So that's actually really thinking about what is really important to you, and then having that in front of mind when you're organising and prioritising your life and your time. If you have more responsibilities than you have time for, these days who doesn't? And I'm guilty of that. Rather than focusing on how you can get more done with your time, change your approach and decide what you could do less of. Something that I've learnt from Dave as well. So, an interesting, anyone want to comment about any of these tips? Any tips to share of what you've done?
One of the things that it's not here, but it is in this list. Randomly this week, I caught up with 2 of my friends who are also customers, and both of them said they've started meditation. And they've started, like, simply, one of the guys simply went to a free app, and he said it's working wonders for him. And
Interesting.
another guy, so this guy is like a business guy based in the city, small business, really busy guy dealing with big companies. The other guy is a paramedic, and he was saying he was chosen to start meditating, and they both said life-changing in terms of clearing the head and
Having time.
being able to switch off. And
Yeah. That's, I guess, having that time to have that me time as well. So, you know, one thing in this list, in the 18 points, is don't be a martyr. So actually saying yes to everything that I'm learning about. Con, anything to add?
Not really.
No? How have you balanced your work life?
Well, in
What's the
recent
tip?
times, when I'm doing catering only and no cafe, I'm having more weekends away, so 3-day weekends away I'm having more.
Which you never had before.
Never had before. So I was more committed. So if there's once a month or once every 6 weeks where there's no work on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it happens at least every 2 months, I just go away. I take the phone with me, but if anyone rings that's work, I don't answer the phone call. I put it on silent, and I speak to them on Monday. So I don't have to answer the call every time.
Yep.
If people want to use your services, because you've been recommended or they want to try you, they will not expect you to answer the phone on Saturday or Sunday. They'll bring you back on Monday. So I just use that work-life balance that if I'm tuned out of work, I continue to be tuned out of work till I decide I'm back at work, even though I don't actually have like a physical location where I'm at a job, because our jobs are mobile. When I'm in the state of mind where I'm back at work, I'm back at work and I answer the phone all the time. So it makes a happy work-life balance for me.
It's good. It's good. Dave, you've given me lots of tips, but any tips to share today?
It's about, for me, knowing what's important, prioritising those things. I'm pretty good at saying no, and I'm pretty good at delegating things. So I can run several businesses and still do what I need and want to do, travel a lot. Just by prioritising what's important.
It's good. So that's one of the points that I've got up here, is about being really clear. So there's this concept that I've come across for those that are still working on what's important and that work-life balance, because it's not just about the time management. Sometimes it's also about how you manage your stress. So we've talked a little bit about time management, but there's also stress management. And this concept called the third space is it's a concept by Adam Fraser. He's a local Australian. He's a peak performance researcher who helps people strive to achieve better performance in everything they do. And he's created this third space based on having his time with these elite athletes and sporting teams, special soldiers and business leaders. I'm going to click on this link. I wonder how he says that he works with elite sportswomen. How do they do that? 3 things, the rest, relax, and what do you actually do? That's,
So reflect.
Reflect, relax, and
refocus.
Reset. Refocus. That's right. That is, it's reflect. It wasn't rest, it was reflect. So
it's very common in athletic terms to operate that way. I hadn't really thought about it in the sense of everyday life, but certainly in athletic sense, it's very commonplace. And meditation also works hand in hand with that, so that in-between phase is ideally a meditative state where you're clearing your mind.
Also, sure about tennis, but golf definitely.
Yes.
That's what they do.
A lot of the sports, they make them focus on that process, what they need to do, rather than the outcomes and the ramifications. So, forget about what's already happened because it's not relevant to what I now have to do. So it's having that discipline to keep the mind focused on getting the job done.
So readjusting.
So for instance, an example is like with golf, where they talk about how when you stand in front of a tin, there's always water in front of you. Most people go, I don't want to go in the water, I don't want to go in the water. And it makes them hit the ball in the water. When you're driving a car, they say, don't look at that tree. Look at where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. And so there's a lot of that
about
sort of stuff.
refocusing. Interesting.
Look at that tree.
That's what they say in defensive driving. You look where you want to go.
So focusing. So we've talked a little bit about what your thoughts are on the third space and how you manage work-life balance. Is anybody struggling with anything? Any areas?
What can we do to people, help people who struggle?
I don't know. Anyone want to answer that question? I think sounds like I'm the only one struggling with work-life balance and doing the research. So this was maybe a topic for me to do for myself, but I was hoping there'd be other people that resonated with this as well.
So who in here is struggling with work-life balance? Who thinks they are,
Aside from me?
I think, I do. I'm trying to, sometimes I feel I work too hard or,
Oh, sometimes I think I have problem with work-life balance. I not work hard enough.
So you're not getting the results.
Can't be focused.
So you're struggling the other way. As in there's too much life and not enough work. What issues or challenges are you facing then, Guy?
Just working late at night and stuff and getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Because the work fluctuates when you're in your own business.
Yes.
I'd love it to sort of just come in more
Steady.
consistent. Yeah. So it's like sort of feast and famine. So it's like a lot of work comes in and then you're working all nights and then there'll be times when there's no work.
And so I think that is fine. So I think that is the nature of business. But I think it's in those times where there are downtimes that you do take time. So you can work very hard, 16 hours a day for a period of time, but then have downtime. And not try and fill those downtimes. So accept you've worked hard and then take some time off.
Which is what Con says you do as well. So it's like every 8 weeks you take your,
But I've had the same issue when I was Dale's age. I'd have the same thought process in my brain that I work so many hours but I think I don't work hard enough. Which is like maybe when you're trying to build a business at a certain level in your life, you have these thoughts. Whereas now I'm thinking, I don't need to work any harder. I've got enough.
Do you have enough?
Oh, I wish next Saturday the lotto jackpot.
I think what Con's saying is true. I agree.
What the
That when you feel you've had enough, all of a sudden work-life balance. You start.
So is that so? You're saying the stage of your life, stage of your life in your career. No, that's pretty much our open discussion. What would say resonates for you is really the conclusion of this presentation, which we have already been speaking about. So I hope this was a good, obviously because of time, we have to wrap up.